Hey, Tuesday, January 31, 2023, last day of the month. Okay, so it looks like Ukraine is getting the tanks, and even they're pushing the Koreans to send some military equipment over. So someone must have been watching my videos and thought, Korea, Korea and Ukraine have a lot in common. South Korea, you know, they both have a menacing neighbor, and actually North Korea is just a lost part of South Korea. Hopefully, I guess the South Koreans are more worried about unification than the North, because of they see the reunification of Germany. Many in South Korea see it as a failure because it dragged on the German economy for a while. But I think in the long run, of course, it would be a good thing. You get the land resources incorporated in your economy, and eventually, a new generation grows up in the new Korea, and then the economy would be in a real boom, like what we're seeing in Germany. I think they've assimilated the East quite well. I mean, yes, there's probably some differences, just like the North and the South of the U.S., but mostly everything works, I would think. I don't know. I have only been in Germany a handful of times, but looking at it from a macro side, it looks like it's mostly working. I mean, yes, there's some news about this and that, but every country has this and that. Even Sweden and Norway have a bit of this and that. So we're coming on, I think in 3 weeks, it'll be 1 year, February 24th, since the war started. So, I mean, I remember last year around this time I was in Krakow, Poland, waiting for my visa, and really optimistic that we're just going to be entering some boom in Ukraine. The tech sector, everything is finally taken hold, and people were starting to move here. The city center was busy, and I guess I'll reflect on that more in 3 weeks, do a 1 year review video, instead of doing it now. So yeah. So the Allies are, I think they're backing the war, but again, it's always this age-old question. I had a talk with a friend who used to live here. Now he's living back in Ohio, U.S., and everyone's saying when the war is over, but that's the big question: when and how. And I don't think it's anti-Ukrainian and stuff to throw out scenarios like optimistic scenario and pessimistic scenario. Like the most optimistic scenario is that Putin gets assassinated from his inner circle. His yes men or his puppets finally get tired of all their assets being confiscated, that they can't send their kids to Ivy League schools in America or buy apartments in London or New York. And because these people are human at the end of the day, and always there's very few idealists in the world. I mean, I guess Putin is rich enough to where he could be an idealist, but usually you need a lot of money and a lot of allies to be an idealist. You have a lot of idealists that are poor, but no one listens to them. But the problem is he's an idealist that a certain group of people listen to. So if his inner circle took him out, and then they all, want to make good with the West, and some new leader emerges who's ready to reform Russia, that's the most optimistic scenario. And let's say this happens. That's the only way we could stop the war, in the next 3 months. So I'm just going to give an outlook for at least the next 3 months. That's the only way it would stop, is if there's some, assassination or accident. But I think he's not even flying anymore. I think he's so paranoid. There was a Reddit post, why don't they take out Putin with, the same, with Navy SEALs or Green Berets, like they took out Bin Laden? It's impossible in Russia. He's surrounded by Russians are very good at paranoia and very good at internal security. Everyone snitches on everyone, and they're just so paranoid and so compartmentalized. It would be hard. I mean, he's got a bunker in the Ural Mountains, and U.S. flew the Bin Laden mission over Pakistan, which was, they flew in through Afghanistan, I think, and then through Pakistan, from Pakistan into Afghanistan. So they were in a relatively friendly area, and then also in an area that they, or I wouldn't say friendly, but let's say an area that they had control over. I mean, they had a lot of support network along the way to make that mission a go. They had to refuel those helicopters in the middle of the mission, so that took a lot of support, and then they had to, of course, leave one behind because, one of them caught the fence or something. I mean, it was an incredible mission, but it was incredibly close, I'd say the most impressive commando mission was the raid on Entebbe, where the Israelis went to Uganda and got out 100 or so airline passengers holed up at the airport, and they, had a limo that looked like Idi Amin's limo, the president of Uganda, coming into the airport. They took out the guards, and then the army, the Israeli army, basically came out of like 3 airplanes and destroyed all. They were just, while they were rescuing the hostages, another unit was destroying the airplanes on the runway, so they couldn't, get in the air and shoot down the C-130s, which are relatively slow movers. If you were going to have a takeout mission on Putin, it would, it would have to be something like that. Like, you'd have to know exactly where he was, like between 2 points, and then, get people in. They would have to be disguised. It would be, so it'd have to come from inside, and maybe, I don't know, like, if the CIA can get linkages to those people and give them a big payout, like, make them a billionaire or something, which would be cheap, actually, to just, if someone in Putin's inner circle for $1 billion took out Putin, and then they put in a Western-friendly leader, man, that's a deal. Even $10 billion, that's put that person on the Forbes 400 list, Putin snitch, top 50 richest people in the world. That would be cheap. That would be a bargain. But that's the only way I see the war could really end in 3 months. I mean, the other one is a stalemate. I mean, it's just going to take a lot of work to get them out of these eastern side in Crimea. I mean, that's looking like, Ukrainians are doing well, and with these tanks and stuff, it's still, you got to put the logistics in place. You got to, move stuff, move people around. So I don't know. I guess there could be a spring offensive. I don't know. They're talking about it in the news, but it's hard. And, the more, now the Russians have, I guess, figured out that they just stay concentrated in areas closely adjacent to the home country. But Ukraine has figured out to attack things inside Russia. I think they attacked a bomber full of missiles and saved us from one missile attack, crashing a drone in there. So they need more of these like longer range stealth drones that can just hit these bombers on the runway that can travel, hundreds of miles under the radar, and I find these targets, have some camera. I don't know if maybe use artificial intelligence that if it recognizes like a, backfire bomber or bear bomber, it has like this optical microchips, NVIDIA chips in there or something, and it can fly to these air bases and then look for these things and then just suicide into them. All you have to do is hit the cockpit with like a kilo of explosive, and then you render the whole plane useless. It'd probably even set off a secondary explosion with the fuel. But if you just blow off the front, of the plane, hit the cockpit area or something, if they could be that precise, I don't know. Those kind of weapons, I think, are, hell, Uber has a guidance system, right? It's called Google Maps. So a lot of these air bases and everything, I think, are on Google Maps, especially to accommodate those heavy bombers. So we need to see this revolution, and it's already promoted revolution in drones. And now everyone's talking about this is draining Western economies. It's actually shifting Western economies. Like I read Kongsberg in Norway is building a missile factory, and U.S. is upping ammunition production. So this is creating jobs, like really nice, secure jobs in a weapons company. These are like Homer Simpson jobs. You go in there in the morning, punch a clock, and you load some copper sheets into a punch, and it punches out the shell casings for the cannons, artillery shell cases. Still, there's a lot of old-fashioned manufacturing in there. You don't 3D print cannon rounds. That's like 1940s, Cleveland, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois type manufacturing stuff. That kind of economy is going to come back. You have to cast these tank cannons. You have to, bullets and all this stuff. It's this will bring back, I think, a new layer to the American economy, like a very blue-collar layer, and we got to get this like blue-collar workforce energized again. You know, plumbers and electricians and machinists. You know, this has got to be you know, something that's admired as a profession. I always liked this. I wish I would have known more about these professions. I was always told go to college, but you know, tool and die makers and all these people, it's like this is the invisible. These people are invisible, but they actually make everything go. I mean, not everything is a computer program. I mean, it's definitely important, but you know, the manufacturing and, you know, getting these components, especially for good old-fashioned heavy weapons, it's it'll bring back America. I think it's actually, you know, we can print all the money we want. Everyone's talking about, oh, they're printing money, but when you look at how much land resources, intellectual resources are in America, you don't need gold to back the dollar. The dollar is backed by our aircraft carriers, backed by the resources under our national parks. You know, we have a huge potential for geothermal energy. And American productivity, it's not increasing as fast as it used to, but it's still going up. So productivity means the ability to get more with the same resources. So, yeah, I'm optimistic. You know, I mean, it's like I say, when will this war end? It's not a matter of if Ukraine wins. It's more a matter of when they win and how they win. You know, it's, you know, is it Russia implodes from inside, or do they actually push them all the way to the border? But I think this scenario where the Ukrainians push the Russians out completely, I don't know. You know, I don't know if that's something that can be achieved in a year or two. I think General Miley, he's you know, he was on CNN. He's the head of U.S., the whole U.S. military, Joint Chiefs of Staff. Yeah, the JCS they call it. And he's projecting like 3 more years, because, you know, I mean, yes, Ukraine is doing this impressive job. They've taken out over 120,000 Russian soldiers, but until things start to falter in St. Petersburg or Moscow, there isn't going to be any real outcry from within Russia. I mean, it's like Hunger Games over there. Only you know, the capital district and, you know, St. Petersburg matter, and St. Petersburg is like District 1. I don't know if you read those Hunger Game books, but yes, they have to send candidates to the Hunger Games, but they get a break. You know, their candidates go to like special schools and usually win all the time. So yes, until things go bad in St. Petersburg or Russia, and even within St. Petersburg and Russia, it would have to go bad in the rich districts. So yeah, maybe the sanctions are biting down on those people, but they seem to be taking it. And I don't know, they have enough luxury items or they're getting smuggled in. It's like North Korea. You have like a support class in Pyongyang. You know, this. I mean, it's incredibly close, but somehow the people in the upper class, that, you know, the scientists and the bureaucrats working in the government, you know, the high level ones, they have a good life there in North Korea, relatively speaking. I mean, they got new apartment buildings. They got they're driving, you know, Mercedes-Benz cars. I mean, there's not many cars there, but there are, you know. So I guess those kind of people can always get what they need. So we really gotta hurt this bureaucrat and upper middle classes in Moscow and St. Petersburg to, I guess, get some internal strife in Russia, because they don't seem to care. I mean, I'm sure those people have VPNs and they know what's going on, but they don't seem to care. Maybe some of them are giving tips. I don't know. You know, that could be happening. But that's where we have to win the war, I think, is to create an uprising from within, because this grind, you know, even if, like I say, Ukraine is taking out 10 to 20,000 Russian soldiers a month, the problem is they have a male population of, like, let's say 30 million they can draw on. So 30 million divided by 100, you know, 100,000 a year. It's like 30 years, and you say, let's say, divide that by even half, it's still 15 years, and then let's say, you know, some of those people age out. It could take 10 years, you know, because they're just doing Iran, Iraq. The Russians don't care about their people. They're just bullet sponges. So they're just using disposable soldiers from the Far East to absorb the bullets, expensive bullets from the West, And that's even how they think about it. I'm sure of it. That's how they think about this whole situation. It's just their mentality is totally off the wall and totally different, and everyone is like trying to frame their mentality in terms of the way we think. You know, they don't care. They don't care if they're losing like 80,000 guys. I mean, they're not even giving guns to a lot of soldiers. Their whole job is to just go and make us expend ammunition, and make us. But what Russia doesn't realize is our whole economy can, just like in World War II and World War I, can be retooled and become a war economy, and a pretty good one. America's always done a good job as a war economy. We had full employment during World War II. It was, so yeah, we can shift the whole economy and make this our epicenter and our focus. And it's usually the hangover after, but then hopefully we can get a friendly Russia in there, or break up into 5 countries, and they pay us back with their resources or something. So yeah, that's just my thoughts. Every video is probably these thoughts. That's probably why my views are going down, or I don't know, maybe people aren't that interested in Ukraine anymore. I'm not sure. But I think this should be the most interesting thing in people's lives. This is the real test of Western democracy and Western civilization. It's the most rare thing in the world. This is like an exception, not the rule in human existence, to have societies where you're allowed to express yourselves and be yourself. You have HR departments and all this kind of stuff, and you can sue bad employers, and it's really an interesting case study here. Western civilization, and Ukraine is like the test. Do we stand behind them and give them what they need, or do we capitulate and allow this horde to take place, take over. Well, anyway, I'm almost home, so you all have a good day. Bye-bye.